both the psalm and the corresponding stories of Joseph and Jacob and Esau. We'll probably go back to study that a lot more in the story of Jacob and Esau that we didn't even come close to touching. At some point we will go back and look at it because it's extremely interesting. But we are going to shift, and as I often do when we move out of one to another, I want to pause and just ask, are there any questions from anything? It could be from the things we've just left. Maybe there were lingering questions about that. Or maybe there's been something else on your mind that you've been thinking about and wondering about. So right now, at least, we're going to open it up. If there's any questions, today is the day. Irma.
Number 5 in the song.
Yep.
They that sow in tears shall reap in joy.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the way around?
Isn't it the other way around?
Yeah, because when we were young,
Uh-huh.
we used to have a lot of fun and laugh. And go ahead and laugh because tears are coming after.
Well, I think what the psalm, again, because the psalm is pointing us to the story of Joseph. And so it is talking about that story. And so in that story, who is the one that is crying? It is Jacob. Jacob is mourning his son Joseph. And so in that story, although Joseph is continuing to mourn over the loss of his son, Jacob is mourning over the loss of Joseph, then later in the story, the fact that he's been mourning this entire time is told to Joseph. That opens Joseph up to being willing to show who he is and share who he is, and that ends up bringing the family back together. So he was sowing in tears, but in the end he reaped in joy because he finally got his family back. The exile, which was Joseph, returned to Zion, and Zion is the promised land, but it's not about the land, it's about the people. And so he returned to his family. His family got back together. So that's what that's pointing to.
But I can see what you mean.
Yeah. Anybody else? Doesn't have to be about that. It can be anything, but it can be about that too.
Come on, Mom.
You don't want to hear my questions.
You don't believe that.
I know you cringe when I start to say
No, I do not. The only time I cringe is when we do it like this one does it, when there's only 5 minutes left in the class.
I'm holding mine.
That's what I cringe. Do you have one?
I was going to ask what your opinion is on, just what would you say is a Christian's responsibility from the standpoint of, elections and voting, and not more like red versus blue, but from the Christian standpoint, because I'm seeing like in Minneapolis or whatever, you've got this enclave of Muslims, and they're electing all Muslim people. It's not just that, but they have this agenda of, hey, we want to do things with Sharia law and things like that, and you can, it's. I just you hear a lot of things, and maybe it's not the book, but the way it's not portrayed, but even practices that it's just not religion of peace. How it's being practiced, just the things that they have as far as when you leave. If you leave Islam, you have a target on your back. You just can't change your mind or whatever like that. So,
yeah. Now I will. So okay.
See?
No. That's a great. It's a great question, and it's an incredibly timely question.
Yeah.
All right.
So don't roll your eyes.
No. It's a great question. I'm going to have to be blunt.
No.
am so heartbroken about this issue. My feed on my Facebook right now, every other thing that seems to come up on my feed is about this. Someone is sending me video clips constantly about this. And it is almost all fear-mongering about Muslim people. It is basically taking all Muslim people and dropping them all in the same basket and saying, they. And this is not just secular people. Most people in my feed are Christian people. Firstly, I don't think that most people actually have very good knowledge about, I would even say most Muslim people. You have vast differences, just like you do in Christianity. There are, I'm just going to mention a name, I think everybody will probably recognize this, the Westboro Baptist Church. Do y'all guys remember this group? Well, the way you would, like, they were in the news a ton about a decade and a half ago. They would go and hold up horrible signs at military funerals. I mean, awful Christian group. I wouldn't want to live in an area where they had sway over what was going on. But the vast differences in Muslims, you have the Shias and the Sunnis. Those are the two main groups. They look at their text very differently. The Sunnis are the ones that are less strict about Sharia law. They are much more relaxed in their interpretation of things. They tend to be the ones that are not pushing, and they make up about 80% of the Muslims. Now, the ones in Iran and places like that, those are the Shias. Those are the ones you hear more about, because they're the ones that are more militant. But I just wonder, for friends of mine, or friends of mine, that are on Facebook, or on some other social media, are they drawn to Jesus when they read those kinds of things? Are they experiencing in the words what the love of Christ looks like? I'm not saying that there are not things that are concerning. When any group, whether it be Dearborn, whether it be Waco, Texas, wherever it is, that people are not, that they are violating laws that are harming other people, that shouldn't happen. And the police should step in and stop other people from being hurt. I am all for protecting anybody that needs protecting. But to single out one religion, especially putting them all in one box and using the kind of rhetoric, and I don't know how else to say it, but sowing fear against those people. And this is what happens. Whenever a group is mostly represented by a specific ethnicity, when you start talking about whatever that situation is, that law that's being broken, or this particular religious group, if they are mainly known to be associated with a certain ethnicity, then what happens is, if I am made to be afraid of this religion that's associated with this ethnicity, then what happens is, anytime I see somebody that looks like that ethnicity, they automatically get tarred with this brush, and now I'm afraid of them, whether they're that religion or not. How can that be something that is something that Christians should be involved in doing? I don't understand why we can't just say, listen, whoever it is, whether it's these people here, regardless of religion, regardless of ethnicity, we have a constitution that kind of tries to keep everyone within the rails, and we need to follow along with that. And if it's not happening, then let's just say, listen, we need to follow the rules here. But for me to point out one particular group, point how things are over, let's just say in Iran, although I have a good magician friend who is from Iran and goes back home to see family. And he said, Terry, since everything that's been happening within the past couple of years, Iran has too much to worry about on the national stage. They have actually relaxed on trying to police women having to dress certain ways. He said, women right now are actually, it's been very relaxed. They're starting to dress more the way they want. Even in that place where I would consider to be the most strict place, probably, or at least one of them. So, it's a very timely question. I do think there is concern to be had, but I don't think it's just about that religion. As I said, it's not a monolith. Everybody's not doing the same thing. I've got a good friend who was a missionary in Iraq for like 4 years and lived in a neighborhood where everyone was Muslim. And his way of being a missionary was to move into the neighborhood, to get a job teaching English, and to be a good neighbor, and to love them. And he said, Terry, I didn't push any of my beliefs on them. I just loved them. He said, and eventually, I had them start to come to me and say, what's going on in my life, the situation that's going on, is not matching up with the faith I've been raised in. Kinley, you've never tried to push your different beliefs on me, but you have loved me unconditionally. I want to talk to you about how you understand, because my life isn't matching up. So whatever our concerns are, and I'm not saying it's not legitimate. I think it's legitimate to be concerned about people who are not following the laws and possibly harming other people. It's a very legitimate concern. But the way we as Christians deal with that has to be in a way that is valuing every single person in the situation and talking about it in ways that aren't going to be fear-based. We can talk about concerns without being afraid. And I think sometimes part of the issue is we don't think, or maybe we just don't believe, that the love of Jesus is powerful enough to be the answer in these concerns. A lot of times I see Christians who are basically saying with their rhetoric, we're afraid of this religion because we're afraid it's going to take over. And my question is, where do you see your faith, your understanding of the power of God's love up against whatever other religion this is? Because we can go back and we can look back in the church and we can find, if we're afraid of aggressiveness, again, not all Muslims, but some, aggressiveness, violence, I can point you back to the Christians when we looked like that, when we were violent, when we were aggressive, when we said you turn or well, it's usually head chopped off or something.
Yeah.
But burning sometimes happens. Yes, actually. John Calvin famously burned someone at the stake. This is one of the major theologians, Christian theologians within the history of the church. John Calvin, John Wesley. And John Calvin famously had someone burned at the stake because they didn't go along with what he thought. Guys, we can't allow ourselves, even in our words that we advocate, to fall into the trap of saying we're going to play by some other group's rules. I'm not going to use my words, I'm not going to use my actions to, and you really have to be careful, because right now in our country, that's the way to argue. You argue by using your words to crush the other person, not to have a loving dialogue and offer, this is the way I see things. I believe I'm logical. I believe I have points. But it's not about trying to destroy you. It's about trying to convince you. And if our words are going to simply be saying, be afraid, be afraid, be afraid of this group or this group or this group, that is not that. Okay. Yes.
When you said the missionary moved into the neighborhood,
Yep. I know what you're thinking.
that is the verbiage for it's originally a children's Bible. Jesus moved Jesus moved into the neighborhood, and then everything else, or a lot of what you said after that about that was Jesus, and that was the climate he was in.
Yep.
Whoa! I mean, that was.
And the other thing I'll say, as you were talking, the other thing I'll say is, and we've talked about this before, again, very relevant. One of the things that we have to be very careful about as the church in America, and it's not just because we're in America, but it's because we happen to be the church that's in this country. I think this is probably an issue with every country. I think it's a little bit more with ours. And that is this thing where we take Christianity and we take nationalism and we try to intermingle the two. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is the nationalism actually takes over, and anything that is not consistent with Christianity gets pushed to the side. The way I like to say it is, too often people are wrapping up the flag and putting a Jesus sticker on it and saying that's what Christianity looks like. Jesus dealt with this over and over and over again in the scriptures. When he is speaking to the Pharisees and he is railing against them, you guys need to understand, one of the reasons he was railing against the Pharisees is because they were being nationalistic. It was just Jewish nationalism as opposed to Christian nationalism. They saw everything through the lens, and we've talked about this the past few weeks, of the difference in understanding of being chosen versus being the favorite. They thought they were living out of being the favorite, and we have to protect our favorite status, and we have to hold on to what is ours. We have to push everybody out. Israel first. As opposed to being chosen, which is how Joseph chose to lead Pharaoh when the famine came. He didn't say, okay, we're going to collect all this, we're going to hold on to it, and we're not going to let anybody else have it. Egypt first. We got to protect our favorite status. We got to protect our resources. He said, no. This moment is for us to be a chosen people to make sure that we are being a blessing to the rest of the world. Jesus was struggling against this even with Peter and the rest of the disciples. They were having trouble getting themselves out of this, we're the favored. We got to be back on top. The whole point of the Messiah, they thought, was for Rome to be vanquished so Israel would be back on top. And Jesus was struggling against this idea, saying that is not what the Messiah is about. That's not what you were chosen for. You were chosen to be a light to the rest of the world. You were chosen to reveal my character to the rest of the world. Is God at all about holding everything to himself and protecting what he's got? Or is God about giving, about opening himself up, about giving up his rights as God, laying them down and becoming a human being so that the rest of the world can be blessed, so that the rest of the world will come to know who he is? And we, as people who are supposed to be living out the life of Jesus, who did that, when we act like the Pharisees, when we act, no, we got to hold everything in, we can't let anybody else, we got to, no. We are not living chosen. We are not living out the way God has called us to be. We can't allow this gotta protect, gotta hold things to myself idea, because what that does is anytime we think somebody else might take advantage, we become fear. These people are trying to take, these people are trying to do. How can that be our stance? Can it be a concern? Do we like it when people take advantage? No. But that's not our focus. Our focus is, you know what, this person might be taking advantage, but what about these people over here that are involved with this person that aren't? They need our help. And what I have one person, I may have mentioned this a few Sundays ago. But when it came to feeding people, he said, I just don't like when you've got these people who are taking advantage. And I said, I understand. Those are not mine. And I said, but what about that guy's kids that guy who's taking advantage? What about his kids? Are we going to let them go hungry? Because we don't want to. And his response was, oh, that's a tough one. I don't know how to feed his kids without rewarding him. Christian, I don't get it. I don't get it. But that's me. Okay. I hope I gave a thorough. I hope I gave enough of an answer. Fine for us to be concerned. Fine for us to talk about it. Please don't us use words that are going to be sowing fear. Guys, do you know the very next step in fear? Hate. Hate is the very next step. When I fear someone, it very quickly turns into hate. Because I hate being afraid. I hate it when you cause me to be afraid.
Yeah, Rick.
Even when I'm the one that started it. All right, those are my thoughts on that. Any other questions?
Well, can I just add something to this?
You're going to add? Are you waiting long enough?
You're fixing to change the subject.
There's a southern phrase for you. Fixing to.
When I met my wife, she said, "You got to come to church with me if you're going to date me." And that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. But this was in the mid-'80s.
No, was this dating her or going to church?
If I couldn't date her unless I went to church with her.
I know, but you said this was the best thing that ever, one of the best things that ever happened. I'm trying to delineate, was it getting to date her or was it going to church?
Okay, don't pin me down.
I knew it was going to come so bad.
This is being recorded.
Okay. I don't fear that too. But I got saved in a revival where the evangelist used fear to bring people to the altar. And I don't think that that's something that has left the church completely. Okay? Now, saying that, I think that 9/11 scarred our national conscience forever. And if Christians had fear as a part of their experience, then it was very easy to use fear in they could be anywhere, you know. I gotta protect my family, you know, and it's first thing you know it's everybody worried about, you know, things that I don't think Jesus ever wanted us to be worried about. But I think that caused such an issue with not just, and I think that's one place that unfortunately blended religion with nationalism. And it was like a landmark thing that we're still trying to get over. And it was, you know, it's like, Lord, why did you let that happen? Because took everybody's mind off you and put it on somebody else.
So, I don't know if y'all remember, I mean, I remember, how many of you remember where you were on that day? So I was in my car. I was taking
Baby Jonah.
baby Jonah to daycare, and I called Laura and said, turn on the TV. Something has just happened. Do y'all remember all of the hate crimes that happened immediately following? Fear. Do you remember the Japanese internment camps after Pearl Harbor? Fear. We can do horrible things when we allow fear to be our motivating factor. That's one of the reasons that Jesus says, I've come that you would have peace. My peace I give you. That even when things around us are going astray, even in the midst of 9/11, that we can rest back and say, I don't know why this is happening right now. I don't understand. But the one thing I do understand is that God is good. He is going to be at work even in this. Not that he wants it, but he's going to use it somehow for good. He's going to be at work in it for good. Ultimately, when we get to the end of everything, God's going to win through love. The scriptures over and over, even just the logic of how things truly work and what you've probably experienced in your life, love is more powerful than anything else. What is actually love? It can conquer fear. It can conquer hatred. God has said he's going to accomplish his purposes through love or not at all. Are we going to do the same? Are we going to live that out? Yes.
When I'm getting ready in the mornings,
Mm-hmm.
and I turn my TV on,
Mm-hmm.
and there's this pastor I've started listening to, Jonathan something,
Okay.
Bartholomew, or
Okay.
but he was speaking in that way this morning. And I started to pick up my little plaque off of my little table and bring it. The one that says, don't be anxious for anything, but in everything through prayer and supplication. Let your requests be known. Well, I do believe there's a lot of fear mongering going on. And I think a lot of it comes from our government. I'm sorry, that's just the way I'll be blunt. They have done bad stuff.
Well, realize that this is who government really has always been.
All right, but then he
Government
went on
always-
to say
Yes,
this
yes.
morning that we have to remember that God is in control.
Ultimately.
But then he got me thinking about Revelations.
Okay.
And my train just jumped. Sorry.
Well,
You repeat what I was saying.
yeah. All right. So, what I'm hearing,
And it does worry me.
Yeah.
It has gotten to where it's beginning to worry me a lot.
Okay.
When I hear about, you know, what they're doing in Texas, where they're building a lot of mosques.
Mm-hmm.
And that's causing some concern. And talking like people want to come in here and just surround us and crowd us out.
Do we believe that the message of Jesus is more powerful and stronger? Do we believe that the love of God is greater than that? Is the problem perhaps, what does Jesus say will happen if this happens?
Draw them into me.
If I am lifted up,
Yes.
I will draw. Guys, I'm going to tell you something. If I haven't told this before, amazing thing in Greek, that word draw doesn't do that word justice. The word for draw is the word they use for pulling the fish into the boat.
Mm-hmm.
It is dragging. If I am lifted up, I will drag all men unto me. The love of God is just not this slightly attractional thing. It is a powerful force of attraction. It is something you have to fight against to be pulled in. He is saying, if you'll live the life, i.e., the death and burial and rebirth that I have lived in front of you, if you will practice the radical, unconditional, unfearful love of God, people will have to be fighting it off. That's how powerful the love of God is. Could it be that the issue is this is not the Jesus we're lifting up? And because of that, people, instead of being attracted and dragged in, are being pushed away. Could that be why people are heading to other religions or no religion at all? Because the Jesus we're lifting up doesn't look like Jesus at all. That we're lifting up a Jesus that is all about favoritism, all about not willing to lay down things for others, about winning an argument instead of restoring relationship. All of these things that seem to be in the mainstream right now that don't look at all like that. Could that be why people are looking to other religions to find an answer? Because we haven't been lifting up the real answer? Because they go, oh my goodness, if that's what Christianity looks like,
Oh.
why in the world would I want that? That's got no answer, because that looks just like every single other person that treats me like I'm worthless. That's all about themselves. And guys, it's a struggle for everybody. At a former church that I was attending, I wanted to know why in the world there is a convent. Literally, I can throw a rock from the end of our driveway and there's a convent over there. It was for retired nuns. Have we ever gone and talked to them? Have we ever tried to do something with them? Have we ever sent people over there to show those ladies how valuable that we think they are? Have we sent our kids over to visit them with coloring things and bringing them stuff? No. Why? Wasn't said, but I can tell you why. They're Catholic.
Yeah, what?
They're Catholic. Why would we do that? Because it's what Jesus would do.
Do you think they would do it if it was just a general nursing home, not?
They would be quicker to do it if it was that. Yeah.
Teresa's a Catholic Jewish, you know, Teresa.
Oh yeah.
She's invited for all her life, just
Yeah.
away.
Well, we don't realize that for 1,000 years, that was the only church. And yet we look at we don't even do this. Dick asked me this question months ago about crucifixes versus why do Catholics have a crucifix and we just have a cross? Can I tell you why? Because that's what the Catholics do. We didn't want to be Catholic. We didn't want to look like Catholic. We didn't want anybody to think we were Catholic. Because we were anti-Catholic. But guess what? Not that I don't think what we have up in front of our church is good. But can I tell you that in some ways it sanitizes what happened. It sanitizes what actually happened here, and we forget what Jesus actually did, what he went through, what he suffered through. We're going to talk about this more in the weeks coming up. All right. I'm only 2 minutes late. I'm doing really well. All right.
No.
Yeah. All right.
So put your bowl up there.
Bunch of bull.
I hope as we talk about things that I'm just sharing my heart. I'm not trying to toe the line for any political anything, because I don't like any of that. But I'm going to share with you how I see things. You don't necessarily have to agree with me. There are some times, and I will say, in my humble but accurate opinion, and in those cases you absolutely should agree with me. But I love that you guys come in and you trust me enough to come in and listen.
We love you, Terry.
Well, I think anybody that listens to me has to. So. Let's pray.
That's getting deep.
Let's pray. Father, thank you for this group. Thank you for our openness, our willingness to be vulnerable by asking questions, sharing our opinions, looking at the scripture, looking at Jesus, opening ourselves up to maybe there's a different way of seeing things than what's being pushed right now. Father, I ask right now that you will open our eyes to the opportunities that we have right in front of us. Every moment that we open our mouths, every moment that we act in conjunction that has something to do with another person, it is an opportunity for us to pick up our cross and to be the crucified Jesus for that moment. That people will genuinely see who you are and not some twisted version of you that's meant to fit in a particular box. And we trust that what you said is true. If we genuinely lift you up, people will be forcibly, powerfully drawn in a way that they'll have to fight, and hopefully, if we live it long enough, they'll finally give up to the embrace. And we know that you can give us the power to do that if we'll allow you. Help us to give up to that. In Jesus' name.